Welcome back to A People's Guide to Publishing. I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing and Distribution. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 25 years.
I'm Ellie Blue. I'm the editorial and marketing director here at Microcosm. We are an independent mid-list publisher based in Portland, Oregon, and Cleveland, Ohio. We have over 700 books, over 25 employees, and we make about 40 new books every year. And we distribute thousands of titles from other publishers.
We started this podcast so that we can share what we've learned with newer publishers so that you can learn from our mistakes.
Or maybe you just want to understand the publishing industry.
This week, we are joined by special guest to the pod, Francesca, of brand new book, Year of the Witch. So, can you talk a little bit about why you wanted to make this book?
So really, it was my I have 3 kids and my 2 daughters who are 20 and 12, which is funny because they're so spread apart. But I didn't really raise them with any sort of spiritual practice. I just kind of released them into the world and been like, whatever you guys figure out will be fine. But I just wanted something that they could like fall back on and have that was like, what did mom do, kind of thing. And so like I kind of wrote it for them. And then so it's just kind of like all this basic knowledge I had kind of slammed into one book. And as I'm creating it, I'm like, oh, it should be easy. It should be digestible in small pieces. I should break it apart into like pages and activities and things like that. I have like kid-oriented brain. And like, and we don't have a lot of time. I feel like sometimes, especially witchcraft, can be very, very time consuming. And so I just wanted to break it up into like small digestible bites. And then that's where like the idea of the planner kind of came in. And it just kind of like evolved from there.
Nice. Where did you get the inspiration for your own practice?
Somewhere about 20 years ago, I lived in Hawaii and I was just kind of really just horribly depressed. And I know it's Hawaii, right? But like it's perception. And I was just feeling like complete crap and my life was not where I wanted it to be. It's pretty typical. And I was at like maybe the Borders or Books A Million. And I was just kind of like looking for something like I need something. I'm in a funk. And it was kind of internet, pre-access to all those things. And I found this like fuzzy, I swear, it's this velvety, fuzzy book by this lady named Tatiana Harding. And I may be mispronouncing that incorrectly, and I'm sorry if I am. But I found it and I took it home and I just like deep dived into it from there. And that just became just the way that I live from then on. And I just feel like it helped me so much just evolve and grow as a person. And so,
Yeah, I actually watched a short documentary recently about a person from Hawaii who relocated to Seattle and was like, everybody thinks of Seattle as like depressing and like gloomy. But I found Hawaii to be that way, mostly because it was like impossibly expensive to do anything. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, right. I had not considered that detail. Mm-hmm. But so like, and it seems like that's is part of it, like your experience of like mindset. Is that like something that you were bringing to this?
Yeah. I'm actually a veteran. So I was in Hawaii, I was stationed there. And so like, that's not really this, and it goes even deeper and we don't have to get into all the history of my trauma, but I like needed to leave my house very quickly. I needed to like, join the military and get out of that space. And I just was in a weird place. And so when I was kind of dunked in Hawaii, I just don't think my mind was ready to be in like, oh, I'm in a beautiful tropical place, because my perception was what's going on. I'm feeling like a crazy person, or I'm feeling, overwhelmed or depressed. I think I was like 19 or 20 at the time. And you're just in a weird place with people you don't know. I had just gotten married, like kind of on a whim. My husband is still my husband now, which is really funny. But at the time, he was only there for like 3 months and we were still kind of working out. Like we were like 2 teenagers who got married.
Hey, if it works.
Not a great idea, but sometimes it works out.
So you
So,
got a husband and a book, and they both lasted you like the
yeah,
last 20
exactly.
years. That's amazing.
Through 3 kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. So hopefully, I mean, I feel like all of our books, my secret mission when I develop a book is that like someone like me or like you, a teenager in a big chain bookstore looking for something and they don't know what, will find this book. And I love that that's your origin story,
Yeah.
because that is exactly what we're trying to do today too. Nothing has changed.
Yes, exactly. I just want to create something that's out there for somebody who feels maybe lost or doesn't know what to do, and they can sort of find this thing. And it's a really positive take. It's really basic witchcraft, but it's a really positive take on like, I am just stepping into this space and I just need to learn, what to do next. So
Yeah. So my former roommate, he works with veterans in recovery in Hawaii, and I had never really, I've never been to Hawaii. I've never thought about Hawaii as like a place that, and then he was like, Joe, it's tons of military bases. And I was like, oh, or tons of ex-military. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Right. And so I'm just guessing here that the experience from the book that you picked up both like resolved those kind of problems and put you on some sort of a path. Is that where you're leading us?
I'm trying to think. So yeah, I think so. Although I didn't experience, my experience was not with substance abuse. It was more just like mental health issues, which it doesn't really matter. It's just what my experience was. It really led me down a path of just buying more books. I would spend all my money on books at that point because I was like into this, I had to know. And like, I was going back and now I'm like, deep diving. And there was a little cute witch shop down there at the time that I obviously don't remember the name. And I don't know if it exists, but I remember going in there and like just looking around and being really just, entranced with all of this stuff that, can help you, and provided more of a direction than anything else that I've ever received in my life before then, or at that point.
Mm-hmm.
How would you kind of like, I guess, describe what is that direction of that spiritual path that you found, and also that your book kind of is pointing towards?
It's just really, it's not really positive or negative or living in this like love and light platform. It's none of that. It's just you living who you are. Like, what is your truth? And then finding that and matching that together in whatever space and translation that sort of means for you. So, who are you now? And if you're not happy with yourself or you're not happy with your life, it's because somewhere you're not living your truth of who you are, of whatever that looks like to you. And so for me, it kind of gets you from not living your truth to kind of finding out who you are and then living in that experience, or at least, some way that works for you. So that's really what it is and what helped me with.
And that's kind of our ethos too, so 25 years ago or so, we got the letter from Tower Records, if you remember Tower Records.
I do.
They had they were like, we want to sell your books in all of our national locations. And we were like, wow, that's weird and huge and like so a lot to think about. And, like in the end, like we had some misgivings, but then we were like, this is the way to reach like disaffected teenagers of any way. Like this is where I would hang out if I had this as a kid, as a disaffected teen, like, and so, but then that's kind of been the overarching direction when we do stuff. It's like you said, it's like, it's not any particular way. It's like the thing that helps somebody like kind of when they need it, as it strikes them, it's like for the right person at the right time. And so is that remaining like a guiding principle in your work?
Yeah, definitely is remaining a guiding principle. I think I really want to focus on like teaching, not necessarily like I'm your teacher, like you have an assignment, but like, like here is what you could do if you're feeling this way, or just kind of here's some examples on some beginner things that you can start with. Because I mean, the goal would be that the individual would find this book and they would continue in the direction, and it doesn't even have to be with witchcraft. It's just whatever their truth is and aligns with their purpose. I would hope that this finds them and they can, use it as a stepping stone to continue and move forward in their own path. Because we're all different and not everybody is going to, be into every single thing. It just whatever works for you,
When we acquired your book, one of the reasons I was really excited about it is because I feel like it pairs so well with, are you familiar with Friday Glad Hearts, the Practical Witch's Almanac that we publish? It's like, and Friday puts out a different one every year, and it's so like, I wouldn't say it's like advanced or even arcane, but there's like, it does assume like you understand something, you've already been introduced, you're like deepening your practice rather than like finding your way. And I love that yours is like a gateway, like yours like that is like a planner. Like you could use it as your weekly calendar to write down your doctor's appointments and your meds and your friend practice, but you could also use it to like record like your spiritual work and your recovery path or whatever you're on. And yeah, I just love seeing that as like a gateway to, you start with your book and you can use it any year. It's not like a dated thing. It's like a unplanner. And then, eventually maybe you're like, oh, I'll check out this almanac and like maybe the next year. Do you have like other books that are sort of your inspiration for this one? Or like, where did you come up with the idea for this book specifically?
I think for this book, it was just really going back to like what I said earlier about my daughters and just trying to write something for them. I didn't really have a super big like inspirational piece. I have tons of books on witchcraft and I read them all the time. And even in like different spaces, like I may not do that, but I'm still going to read about it because it's interesting. But like, I think that just the all, together inspiration of everything was just for this book. It's not really like one thing specific.
Mm-hmm. And so like, what did this prompt, like newer ideas as you were working on this book, or like other books that you wanted to create, or what is kind of like the path that you're on now?
I made a website just to have like somewhere to like drop things in, and like I started to blog on there, and I made a TikTok, and it has 2 TikToks on it. It's as far as I've gotten. I think I would like to keep going. I don't really have like a clear-cut plan or idea with exactly what I'm doing. That works best for me if I just roll with it and like kind of vibe out where I'm feeling. And I would like to eventually have more books in this space of like where to start, maybe like I'm thinking about, maybe a tarot one or one on astrology, like different points of topics and things like that. So, and that's, thinking just in that space.
Helping people get started.
Yeah. But maybe it could evolve even more from there. I don't know. I'm like the worst planner. Like I have a planner and I like planning my day and like my week, but like, I don't know what I'm doing, next year. I just know it's like going to be in this space, but it's non-specific.
It makes sense why you would create a weekly planner then.
Yeah, it's like I got it, but it builds on itself. So I feel like, by this time later, I'll know what I'm doing because it'll be then already.
Totally. Well, we'll ask you again in a year. So your book was like definitely a little bit different than a lot of books that we've worked on, because it does have quite a bit of text in it, but all of the text, like it's a very image heavy book, and also all of the text was sort of designed into images before we started working. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess like sort of the technical process of putting this book together and editing it and designing it, and what was that like?
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot more work than I thought it would be.
Oh.
But in a good
Sorry
way.
about that.
in a good way, because it's definitely much more refined. I'm a graphic designer, and so that's what I do for I'll make a living, whatnot. But I just wanted to add those elements in. Like if I'm submitting something, I'm a very visual person. Like the lots and lots of text, sometimes I have a little dyslexia. It starts to get lost in my brain. I really need to see like small pockets of text, and then they need to make sense to me and how like building in a visual way. And so the planner made sense to me. And then to bring in, some iconography and some other, drawn elements makes more sense. I just need to see things. And so the process of it was, of course, making the initial submission, and then really working with you and with Olivia, the editor, back and forth. And I think I'm really open to a lot of good criticism and feedback. And so just working it out, working all the kinks, because obviously it makes sense to me. I wrote it, but does my wacky brain make sense to everyone else? I have no idea. So it was great to get, some other people to read it. And I can ask my daughters, but they'll be like, yeah, Mom, it's great, because they're not really looking at it, they're like, it's totally fine. They're not going to, they're not going to really give me that like hard feedback. So the process was just, like any other book, I assume, back and forth, but I just putting it back in the computer and changing things around as far as like working in Illustrator or in Canva or whatnot to like design everything and move it around. And then that was like the most tedious part. But, we needed to make sure, I think the hardest part was making sure there was enough space for writing, like there was enough space for the text, for the graphic elements, and then enough space for also to be able to write. And if you're like me and you have a real sloppy handwriting, you still need to really get in there and be able to read your text and make it legible. And then the font sizes and things like that. So it was kind of like, for me, a big puzzle to put together and to make everything, all these moving parts to make everything workable and legible and make sense to everyone, not just me.
Were there any like surprises about sort of like, because I know that often when we work with designers, they're very surprised at what we need for a book as opposed to like for a screen or for a different kind of format? Were you surprised by anything in book production?
A little. I worked in print before. I've worked with magazines. Okay. So I have a pretty big awareness to like what is involved in the print process. I've worked for newspapers too and stuff like that for a really long time. So I was pretty aware of the print process. It was more of like the little things like the sizing of the, like what size is the book? That was, and then how to smush everything into this size that makes sense. Also like what needs to go in the beginning, like all the technical pages. And the biggest thing for me was the layout, because things have to lay flat. And then the days of the week need to be, it needs to go from Monday to Sunday on. It can't be awkward. So we're putting in pages in between to make the page number make sense, and then catching that correct page number without having to add a gazillion more pages at the end. So again, like another puzzle of like all these moving parts, and then going through it over and over and over. And I have it all like in the PDF, and I'm just staring at it and like, like going through it and making sure like as you open it up, because I didn't print it at home prior, because you just have it on a digital platform, and it's just like scrolling through it, and I'm counting all the pages, like just to make sure it works. And I'm like, crap, do I have to add, another illustration in here? Right. So that was the most surprising part, because when I have worked in magazines, it wasn't necessarily putting the whole thing together. I'm just submitting, page runs with like, graphics and layouts and things like that. So it was like my part was very small in that space, where in this one, I'm like putting this book together in a larger format, and everything has to line up and be really specific. And then the page number, we have to hit that page number, and there can be a blank page at the end, but I didn't know that. And then I went and got all these other books, and I'm like, every book has a blank page at the end. How did I not notice?
Yeah, it is fascinating. Like, and I've done book layouts for just almost 30 years, and I still am and I feel like sometimes you have to do that, but it does feel like it's often cheating. But then you look at any book, and like the sheer number of padding of blank pages throughout to hit the signatures, I'm always like, just seems like you could do so much more with this. But like I also know the realities of it. Yeah. So then I'm like, I get it why they have 6 blank pages out of the first 14, but still,
Yeah, it was shocking. And like I said, I grabbed other books, just random books to like see, and I was opening them up. Okay, I'm like, okay, here is the publishing page because it has to have all the stuff. And I'm like, they have that too. I've never even looked at that before. I've read how many now I feel so bad. Like I should read these beginning pages too. And these people worked really hard on this book. And I don't even know who their names are. Like, you know, like the editor and whatnot, because you fly through that and you just get to the first page. Like, it's just like packaging, you know, you're just ripping it open. And now I'm like going back and I'm like, okay, I need to be more like cognizant of these beginning pages. So they're important.
Having like sweated over them makes you realize. I know, and I do think what most people don't realize is that a book is kind of a little math problem, like every single book. And if it's all just text, it's a lot easier because, like, you know, someone like Joe will go in to do the layout and, like, you know, very slightly increase the font size or the distance between lines to make the book, you know, 200 pages instead of 197 pages. But like, and so you wouldn't notice. But when you get a lot of images and things, like a calendar layout that has to be on a certain page, like you really know a small mistake can have like really big noticeable repercussions. So thank you for working with us on that. And it's true, we probably could have added a blank page at the end. You know what though, I liked your solution better though, which I believe was to have your husband do illustrations for the blank pages.
I totally
that was really sweet.
That. I'm like, hey, you were with me since the beginning. Can you? No, he's actually really helpful and really nice. And he was more than happy to add illustrations in there. And he is an artist and draws all the time. So he wasn't too worried about it.
And it's like it keeps it in the family in a different way too, you know.
And I'm like, and your name will be in the book. And he's like, okay.
But like it's for your kids, and then
it's for them, you know. Totally fine.
I just want readers to know, if you buy this book, there will not be blank pages. You will have maximum value per page, per cent, per dollar that you spend.
It's good.
Is it weird to brag about that? It's kind of weird. I don't think anyone. I guess the point is they don't notice.
Something we run into all the time is like whenever industry people look at our books, they're like, "Your books are such a good value," and I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" And they're like, "Well, like it's not filler," and I'm like, "What? I mean, why would you make a book that is filler?"
Right, because it has to go through the process. You might as well put something on it.
We don't have the 16 pages at the end for taking notes.
We've done it, but it's been a while.
I'm suspicious now with all the books that have that because I've seen that.
You're like, you just know, exactly what was going on behind the scenes.
Right. It's the stress. Also, the other thing was like the page numbers, because it was like graphically made. I think we had to remove like 1 or 2 page numbers. And that was weird too, because then I had to figure out how to add the page numbers without like with taking 2 off, without like jacking the whole thing up, like running it through. And that was, I feel like that was a couple times there, like trying to get the page numbers to run and then removing them, but then adding them with skipping a few here and there. So that was surprising.
There's an early microcosm book that I used to show all of our interns and be like, what's weird about this book? And there were a lot of weird things about the book, but the thing that I was getting at was like the recto verso page numbers were reversed. So like the even numbers were on the right side and the odd numbers were on the left side, which I just love because that's so like, a bunch of punks doing publishing yourself. You were like, why not do it this way? And why do we do it the other way?
In our defense, before the era of digital proofing, you didn't get the like recto verso layout. You just got loose, what they were called blue lines. You may remember this, Francesca, from your magazine and newspaper days. So they literally, you get like, it's not a printout and it's not like the finished book, but they're just loose pages. So they don't show you how they interrelate, so that you could totally miss like left and right and then end up with, nowadays you just get it as a PDF file, but
much easier.
So that wasn't intentional, Joe? You were surprised by that outcome?
So what happens, believe it or not, is like printers are not the most technologically sophisticated people. So if you had a blank page in your layout that didn't say something to the effect of like this page intentionally left blank, they would remove that page, and then you would have it inserted at the end. And so like, you'll catch a few of our really early books where like the last page is actually the second last page and there's a blank page after it.
Amazing.
I would have cried if I would have got that. If you would have sent me this book back with the hundreds of little pages, I don't know if we would be here.
No, there would be angry emails being exchanged, I'm sure.
Yes,
Office mail.
But that one, and like we did have one author that was like, what are we going to do about this? And I'm like, well, I don't know that there's a lot we can do about it at this point. We will reprint it when we sell them all. How about that? But it's hard to accept in the moment, I suppose. The like facing pages fiasco of pre-2003. I guess really you didn't really get digital proofing until like, I swear, like 2007, 2008. Like it's pretty recent, weirdly, because computers have been pretty standard. But here we are,
slowly catching up to technology.
Better now.
Well, do you have any projects I won't ask you about your plans for the distant future, but do you have any projects that you're working on right now that you're really excited about?
I don't have any. I'm just kind of mulling about in project world. I have like a tarot workbook that I'm but it has to like fit in my brain. Like I have to be like, this is it before I'm like ready to, I'm still kind of like, I guess playing around with how it would look like or how the layout would be and how it would make sense. And then, but that's really the only thing that I have really going on, just kind of working with what it would look like. And I've made like some mock pages and like playing around with stuff, but nothing very like set in stone or ready to make headway like today. I'm like, I think I would like to, I think I'm very much into tarot, and I would like to have something that's kind of like the Year of the Witch, but for tarot, but I'm still in like the planning phases of that. And so like, and then of course, if I have the tarot, then I need each individual card created, which is like, there's 70 something of them. And so then we're in that space of what is it going to look like? How is the iconography going to look? And then what does it make sense to have on each tarot page? And how does that work if somebody is just learning tarot for the first time? And what do they need to know, And so kind of digging around in that space.
And then at some point, you've also made a deck, which is its own huge project.
Yes. And then should the deck be its own thing, or is it not good enough because it's just in the book? You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I don't know yet. I'm kind of, then it's like, do I want to force my husband to draw the deck for me? He doesn't want to do that.
Right. Well, and the thing that a lot of people do is they work with an existing deck, but then you're kind of like iconographically bound to that, the look of that deck.
Yeah.
So it's got to be one you like.
Yeah. And it's not, I like a lot of the existing decks, but I feel like their creators are, I don't want to be taking, anything away from other creators. I would, it's just funky. So I'd rather have like something new to look at in that space, but it has to make sense.
Oh, yeah. I like that you're being thoughtful about it all. That's not often that way. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been really, I feel like this is like an appropriate topic for a publishing project, but I feel like you've been sort of like the quintessential good author to work with. And I don't want to say like other authors are bad, like, everyone's got like a different level of where they're at, but like you, and possibly to your detriment, have been so easy to work with. Like everything we've said, you've been like, great, I'll do it. And like Olivia was actually brand new. I think your book was one of the first 2 or 3 that she edited, maybe the first one. And she kept being like, I keep asking Francesca to do all of these things, and it seems like a huge burden. And she just keeps saying, okay. And I think she might need more time, but she doesn't say she needs more time. And then she just turns it in. And,
Right. Oh, right. And then you had, yeah, right, because you had done it in Canva, so there was like an issue. Oh, right. So you couldn't use like Audio Folio in InDesign. So, right, you had to like fix the page numbering. And you and then you had like a bleeds issue, right?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, that was all me.
Oh, but you took care of all of it. You solved it all.
Yeah, I mean, I made the book. I'm not going to be like, here is my hot mess book. You guys figure it out for me. You know?
That would be a much more normal thing to do.
Oh, well, next time. No, I'm kidding.
Now you know.
Next time you can be slightly higher maintenance if you want.
Standards and practices.
No, I like working with people, and I felt like Olivia was, all of you were fantastic to work with, and I never felt any bad hiccups. And when she was asking me to work on things, I didn't feel like it was outside of expectations or what would be. I'm designing the book. It's my, I never felt negative about it at all. And she was great to work with. And I thought her input and her writing was phenomenal. And she had so many good suggestions, and she found every single comma that I didn't put in. Because there was a lot.
That's my superpower.
Because I don't know where those things go, and I'm like trying to research on my own. Like, where do you even put that thing? Because it's not always just a pause.
No, the rules don't always make a lot of sense.
I have no idea. And so I mean, in my end, I feel the same way about all of you guys. It was fantastic to work with and super easy. I'm shocked that I even have a book. Like, it exists. I'm so happy, and it's exciting to like work on something for so long and then see it. It's super fun. And this is like why I feel like we all exist, just to like make cool stuff, and what your truth is, and that's it.
Yeah, let's hope. So how does it feel now that your 3 kids and like thousands of strangers can enjoy this book that you've made?
I feel a little nervous. I'm not, like a person that is like, on top of everything. Like, I'm just a regular schmuck. Like, I feel a little nervous. I feel like, oh, gee, I hope they don't think that I'm like, like that I got it all together and I'm this amazing. I'm also still learning, and we're all just here stuck on this planet, just all learning. And I hope that, I hope that people like it. I hope that they get something out of it and it helps them in the way that maybe my first books helped me. And so that would be all of what I would want.
That's what real.
It's all about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only thing is that I hope this is like the first of, as I keep growing as an author, maybe I can do more stuff, but like, I don't know. Well, I have no plans.
We would love to work with you again.
Yeah, let us know when the Tarot book is in a place that it needs eyes.
I will for sure. I'll send it over in sometime, hopefully in the next several months or something.
We'll be here. No rush.
Sounds good.
Good. Well, thanks so much, and wonderful to meet you.
It was so nice to meet you too, and thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you all taking the time to talk to me today.
Likewise. So great to talk with you, and thanks for sharing your story and your meaning and purpose with the world.
Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub,
on Twitter at microcosm,
on Facebook at Microcosm Publishing,
on Instagram at microcosm_pub,
and here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.